Hi, I'm Tanya from Cloud Business Services and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp, where I help accounting pros build confidence and work more efficiently. Welcome to AI in Action. Each week I'm sharing real use cases, what's actually working, what's not, and how to make AI work for you in your practice, not against you. Because at the end of the day, AI should amplify what we do and not replace us. So this week we're going to dive into big cleanup jobs. So I've got a file that I've been working on. Every time I go back in, I've got, only like so much time throughout the week. It's been an ongoing job for several months. And when I sit down to go in, I'm like, where did I leave off? I'm trying to look at my notes. Just going to say the software's mucked some stuff up too. And people working on the file. And so I lose track very easily. And I spend so much time getting back into it. And basically going, well, I may as well just look and redo everything. Look from top to bottom, double check, make sure nothing got changed. Because at the end of the day, it's my name on the line for this. And that has been so much time wasted. And so therefore, I've kind of been ostriching. I've been really putting it off because mentally it broke me. It really did. So what did I do? I decided to try to use Claude. So I use Claude a little differently. And of course this I'm having to, I can't use the real file because of course there's real information in the real file. So essentially what I did first off is phase one is I had the client review, Claude. So basically I was co-working with it, not using the co-working section, but just using a chat or a thread. So I created a project for it and I started in the thread and I said, okay, I've lost track of where I am in the client conversation. So we use a portal. So I was able to go in, use Snagit, take screenshots of everything and loaded it up. And I said, okay, here is a year's worth of conversations back and forth with the client. Tell me what is not responded to in here. And it did. It took me minutes. And it said, okay, here's some things that aren't responded to. 4 items. I'm like, oh my God. Instead of sitting there going through and then going and tick, tick, tick. Did I do this? Did I do that? That alone saved me at least an hour just to try to figure that out. I'm like, all right, fine. So now we've got that. So then I uploaded the balance sheet. We've already got the profit and loss straightened out and just we're working on the balance sheet account. We're working backwards for our own purposes. Normally I kind of might work differently, but this is how we're doing it. So I started talking in here. So I uploaded the balance sheet and I said, okay, here's the balance. Here's everything. So it would know when I talk about what name or use, an abbreviation for an account, it'll know because that's what I've got. I've got my little tick box and I'm just kind of going straight down. I'm actually fully paperless on this. Now, the other times I've tried to do this before, I've had piles of paper printed on this same client. So what I did, I just did a screenshot using Snagit and I just got rid of the lines as I went through. And I talked to Claude. I used my whisper flow and I talked to it and I said, I just want you to keep an ongoing list. I'm going to brain dump all of my thoughts in here. So I brain dump, said, okay, this one's good. I verified, that bank account. It's reconciled. When I go into reconcile, there's no changes. So that's good. Let's move, let's move, let's move. This one, nope, it's going to require some more. I'm going to come back to that. And then I had actually a junior bookkeeper working on that. So I made my notes in that saying the junior is going to work on that. I'm going to get back to that and started working through. When there were things that were notes to the accountant, notes from the client, information I couldn't get. I, again, brain dumped all of that. So essentially here's on the right side here is, it didn't look like this. It looked like it normally you would expect in Claude. But I had to pull it. There was a lot of identifying information. So I had to pull it out. So you can see this is 9 pages here. It's grouped a lot of it together. This was 10 hours. And I have to say, near the end of it, Claude 3 times encouraged me to walk away and said, I've had a big, long day. I need to take a break because it was 10 hours of just talking. So I'd go into QuickBooks, do my work, and then I'd come back out and I'd hit my button and I'd talk. Here's what I did. Here's what I did. Here's what I did. So instead of making all these notes or instead of just remembering and going through, again, I talk fast. I'm working at 135 words per minute when I talk. So it's just a quick, yep, here's an update, here's an update. So that did not slow anything down. So we went through the, basically everything all down. Yep, truck loan. I now have the bank sheets that were uploaded that it caught from the statements, the loan statements that were caught from the chat. So I got down to that. I said, okay, I saw you grab them. I'll go in and I'll update them. There's payroll clearing. Here's the client asked what that was for. Here's some ones that I voided. Here's this, here's that. I worked, started working everything all the way through. Again, here's my notes, holding account. There were some errors, this and that. And of course, I had dumped everything into a couple of different accounts just while I was working through. There was a clearing account. There was an Ask Client account. There was this is property management. So there was 3 or 4 different rent clearing accounts. So we had to get all those sorted back and forth. And the number of bank accounts, it was extremely complex. So I was able to go through here. I also stated what time I started working on one balance sheet item and what time I finished so that it could track it and put it down and say, okay, this isn't how I left it. Here are these details. So it basically was my diary of everything that I did as I was working through. And I'm not screenshotting it. I'm just speaking out loud into AI that I already have. So we work all its way through, all through the different accounts, the operational accounts. Here's all the notes. Yep, I'm copying and pasting whatever I was doing. So you can see all of this worked through a lot. So there was a lot more notes on all of this stuff of me going back and forth. I will say that I did time it out and max it several times. So what I started doing is I learned and said, okay, I just want you to keep all this and don't update it until I tell you. So it just kept me a to-do list, not a separate sheet of paper. I said, just keep it within the thread, but don't update the list until I tell you to. I'm just going to add a bunch. And then once an hour, I said, okay, now take that, update the to-do list, and it would update it. So once an hour, I did that. At the end of the day, let's see, Claude said, hey, it's been a long day. I'm done. I haven't been keeping track of all this stuff in the middle, but it's been a long flipping day. Claude says, I'll say you started at whatever time this morning. That's a solid, it was 10 hours on the file. And it was not a straightforward one. Between QBO glitches, clients' midnight changes, reconciliations going back 2 years, I think, on these ones, due to a glitch. And all the interconnected clearing accounts, it was a beast. Take a break. You've earned it. When you're ready, just come back and say the word, and I'll produce the full formatted working paper document for the file. So I didn't listen. I still worked for a few more hours. So we've got some more going through that. Then what I did, I said, okay, give me a summary of all of this. And so I've uploaded the summaries into here. And again, had it remove any information. So it's not the exact ones I received, but it's going to give you a really good idea of what this looks like and how I've got this same thread that I can just go back and keep using as I'm working through here. So, which is pretty darn awesome. So, outstanding item summary. I kept this for my call with the client. And I sent this to the client and I said, okay, I've been co-working with Claude, using it out loud just to keep my thoughts from getting jumbled. And like a lot of you, if you don't know this, and you've probably known this a lot longer than I have, I'm actually ADHD. Just figuring that out, but I'm trying to learn how to work with it. And this worked beautiful with it. If I had done this 6 months ago on this file, it would have been gone off my desk and I wouldn't have been ostriching in the sand, definitely. But it said, here's the in progress, here's the action required by the client, here's what was for the accountant. So it was a nice summary that I could send to the client, say, okay, here's what we're going to go through on the next call. We did, and that was 2024 closed off, and then we've got 8 months of 2025 to do and get that finished. I'm going to do the same thing. Now, it's going to keep adding to this. What it now has for me that it's built as well is for the accountant. This is going to be a mess of a working papers for the accountant. So it gave me this balance cleanup working papers with the company name. Green is done. Yellow is either in progress or a recommendation from us. Account review and open action required. So you can go through this whole thing. And if there was something that was being saved for the accountant, it said why. I am like, these are beautiful working papers for the accountant that it came up with. And all I had to do was talk while I worked. Everything through here. Beautiful. So next time you guys have a big, ugly, mean file that you are working on, co-work with Claude. Just turn on to do that. Again, I use Whisper Flow, so it picks up everything that I say, helps me work very fast. And if I need to correct something that I've said, it automatically corrects it. But use that, or use what Claude's got going on itself. But try this. I actually want to hear back. Any of these things that you guys are doing, put in the comments, reach out to me. I want to hear how this is working for you. And we actually do have a podcast that we've got starting up, that if you want to be a guest on the podcast and talk about different things that you have done, there is, it's completely free. It's just my time and your time. And I'm going to give you a podcast back that you can use to, we'll talk about how great you are for your clients and use it as a marketing tool and whatnot. So anyway, more for you on that later. So that's what I have for you this week. So if this helped you to start thinking differently about how you're using AI in your practice, that is the point. This is the kind of work that we're doing inside Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp, helping you build confidence, think strategically, and think outside the box. So check us out at bookkeepersbootcamp.ca. In the meantime, share this with someone who's still trying to figure AI out. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. This is Tanya signing off. I'll see you next week.